One of the features of modernity is an endless thumping noise. In fact, one of the reasons I left London was because I realised if you try and sit still in silence, you will always hear something, whether that is the horns, conversations and building works of the day, or the hum of traffic, the sirens and the skirmishes and languages I often don't understand during the night. Now that sort of discombobulation gets in your bones, it gets in your soul and affects the natural homeostasis of the mind and body. It seems to me we're bombarded by noise these days. Even online, everywhere is drama. Everyone's looking to give you a dopamine hit to keep your eyes locked in their attention economy. Now, one place I often see this play out in real time is on trains in the UK. Now, trains are actually quite interesting in Britain because they're an active museum. They're an insight into our Victorian history. Yet while noticing this in moments of peace and reflection, you can feel and hear modernity creeping in everywhere, from the modern noise and the food and the smell of that on trains to the languages people are speaking loudly on their phones. And to be honest, many people doing that are English too these days. Now, I'll make no bones about it. I like peace and quiet. I like manners. I like a traditional way of life. However, every time I go on the train network, I can see somebody making noise. In fact, I was waiting at the station the other day and I saw some young fella, I guess he'd be called a chav in the common parlance, and he was really struggling doing nothing. He couldn't bear sitting in silence waiting for the train. So he had to play this tinny music from his phone at a very loud volume. Now, as you might imagine, at first I found this quite rude and annoying and a disturbance of the peace I was enjoying. However, it did allow me to contemplate what was going on for that young man. This is a young man who's never sat in peace, who's never embraced that part of our way of life and tradition, ever. He's simply been bombarded by dopaminergic media ever since he was a little baby. Henceforth, the silence is probably intimidating for the guy. He cannot bear the stillness, the deep peace. That to me is the sign of an ill soul and an ill culture. After all, it is in the peace and quiet where you can hear the murmurs of the soul, or the more clearly, where you can connect with the rhythms of life. This is where creativity and wisdom are ultimately born. Does so many of us run from this back into the noise of modernity shows that many of us are completely detached from the world, from nature, from our tradition. Yet we do have a very simple recourse for action here. If you do get out of the cities and conurbations and go into the nature of the UK, you will find it is breathtakingly beautiful and breathtakingly quiet. This is something that as yet still hasn't been taken over by modernity, despite the warnings of people like Tolkien and the desires of people like the modern Labour Party. And speaking from personal experience, when you first embrace the countryside, it can be quite intimidating at first. There's the boredom of the mind which has been built to expect something via modernity that you have to overcome. Yet if you can overcome that noise of the mind, whether it's sitting still or walking your dog or simply going for a walk by yourself, you soon realise there's a profound peace that overcomes you. The heart starts to still, the senses slow down. Another great beauty that you're gifted here is you see our ancient land come into view. You see ancient streams quietly rolling on, reassuring you that the modern madness will end, that we've faced all sorts of challenges before and they've come and they've gone. You also start to hear the wind rustling through the trees. A friend of mine referred to that once as the voice of God, which is quite a beautiful analogy. However, you start to think, how old are some of these trees? I looked some up that live near me, and it turns out that some of them were born before the time of Shakespeare. Of course, that makes you contemplate what these great fathers of our land have seen, the wars, the changes, all of the eras have gone by, and they've stood still in eternal peace, shedding their leaves when autumn comes and regrowing when spring arises. All of this makes you realise we're part of a play here, and we can actually tap into the rhythms of that play. And it's not just a pointless exercise. I found it makes you taste, smell and feel all the more deeply. It makes you connect with other people all the more deeply. Yet perhaps most importantly, when you come back to the world of work and the noise of modern media and whatever else it is that takes your attention away, you find that an inner wisdom has been instilled inside of you. We have a stillness as a guide, the armour of God in religious language. This is something I think is so vital for us in this day and age because our culture, our tradition is being taken from us every single day. On top of that, we see our lands, our continent being taken from us by political ideologues who act like a runaway train with seemingly no peace and wisdom in their souls. They are like machine men fueled by utopian ideologies fostered in cities like London, Davos, and LA. Yet a practice like this is so key because it connects you to something that can't be taken away from you. That's the peace of your homeland, your tradition, your way of life, your spirit. Now I know this video is a bit out of step with what I normally do, but I hope it touched someone out there. There's a wealth of beauty, a heaven on our doorstep that we're often told to ignore implicitly by the modern world. These are just some of my thoughts, however. Do let me know what you think down below and do consider subscribing to the channel.